I appreciate your help in our self-study. We have some really exciting things that are coming up and to look forward to. But I want to give you a quick video on how to get into SharePoint and what to do once you get there. Go to office.com and log in with your college email and then the password that would get into your Office 365, and then go to SharePoint. By the way, you can use any of these online, even Word and Excel. You can do all this online if you want, but you can also, of course, download any of these, and some of you have if you have the right license to do that. You're able to download these, and so we're going to be looking at SharePoint. So I'm going to click on SharePoint to get to that site. Once I get there, I'm going to click on the Self-Study 227 group, and here's our opening page. As you can see over here to the right, these are the dates that are coming up. We have our staff visit and our evaluation team visit. I've already sent you an email about that. Here are the dates for the commission meeting and the conference in October, and we hope to be in front of the commission then, and Lord willing. Down here to the right are the documents that you have. You can also get to the documents by clicking over here on the left, and this will take you to just a area which just simply documents. But you don't have to do that, because if I go back and look at this page, you can see that these documents are down here and available for you. I've included of course, the folder for our self-study this year. I've also included the folder with all the material for the self-study that we did back when we had the candidate status, and that will be a tremendous help to you. And then the self-study proposal that we just sent in just for your information. If I click on this self-study here, I see that I have have a folder for the documentation. I also have a folder for appendices, and that's documentation that we'll be using quite a bit. We'll explain all that later. And then the TRACS documents. These TRACS documents are really important, and we'll be looking at that in a few minutes. Over here under self-study instructions, if you click on that, we see the assignments that we've made of different people. Like I am doing the face statement area. Mrs. Gainer's helping me in that. Mr. Moots, Dr. Moots, and is handling the faculty. Mr. Penley helping him. Of course, Mr. Osborne is working on financial operations with Olivia, and Ken Fisher helping him in that area. And library, Mrs. Penley there with Mr. Going, helping her in that area. And so we have different people doing different things. The TRACS manual has been updated, and it's different than it was when we did this last time. It would be helpful if it was exactly the same, but it is a little different. And the good news is they streamlined it and really have helped it a lot. They have 16 areas that they're covering, and they've kind of combined some areas and so forth. You used to have more than that. And then they have this 17th area that are federal requirements. And all of these are standards that the federal government requires, like the definition of a credit hour and the program length and so forth. So that's the assignments. Over here on the left, I have you some instructions. And what I'd like for you to do is this. First of all, I want you to review the TRACS standards to which you've been assigned. So over here's your assignment on the right. You review that in the TRACS manual. I also suggest that you read through the Demonstrating Compliance Manual. And in it, it will tell you a great deal about your area. So let's go back to, or we can just click on documentation, or I can go back to the front page, or you can always click on home, and that will take you to the first page, okay? Right there to that. Let's go into the self-study for this year and the TRACS documents. Now, these are a little hard to understand what they are. You have to unpack a little bit. But this right here is the Accreditation Manual, AM, Accreditation Manual, and it was revised last spring. So if I click on that, it should pop up, or it should download according to what browser you're using. This is a PDF file. You can download it yourself. And this is the entire TRACS manual. And you can go to your section, and you have to scroll through some introductory material and finally get down. There's sections that I showed you a few moments ago. And like here's section 1. Here's the first standard under the faith statement. tells me exactly what the face statement in general, and then the exact standard. Here's the first standard, is 1.1, and here's the second standard, 1.2. Let me mention something to you here that you see that some standards are in bold and they have the letters IER after them. IER stands for Institutional Entry Requirements, and they are also in bold. And these have to be in place for a basic compliance, they call it, for an institution to apply at the very beginning. They won't even let you apply unless you have these in what they call basic compliance. Then, when you become candidate status, you have to be in compliance with all the IERs. Now, back in the old days, there was only 8 IERs. I think there's just a few. Now there's a bunch. I think they're making it harder for institutions to apply, and once they apply and get candidate status, they're more likely to become accredited. I think that was the whole idea on the many IERs. What does this mean in accreditation? Well, I know very much what it means because I've been on teams where we've evaluated schools for accreditation, and the bottom line is this. If we are not in compliance with any IER, it will be a deal breaker. We have to be in compliance with every IER. There's no if, ands, or buts about it. If we are found out of compliance with any IER when the team comes here in July, then they will recommend that we are not accredited. Now, we might be able to get in compliance with that before the commission meeting in October, but we are not going to become accredited if we're out of compliance. Now, some of these are not in bold. They are not IERs. In this case, the IERs that we have a face statement, and it's readily available, including official publications, and we have that. That is not a problem at all, and it fits what we do, and it fits these criteria that's up here in regards to being in compliance with TRAC's biblical standards, and it's set down by the board, and so forth. But we are in compliance with this, and I can show that by showing where it's available, and it's included in all of our publications, and that it fits that. The second criteria is the institution's board approves and periodically reviews the institution's face statement. Now, I can also prove that. I can show the minutes of our board meetings, and so I can easily prove that. However, if we could not prove that, and if we hadn't really been having the board approve it on a regular basis, then we might get a recommendation for this 1.2. If we get a recommendation for an IER, again, it's a deal breaker, but we might get a recommendation for 1.2. In other words, they may find us not in compliance for 1.2. I know they won't in our case, but let's say they did. Or any of the ones that are not in bold. If that was the case, then we would get a recommendation, and it would not be a deal breaker. Every evaluation team that I have been on has found the school out of compliance with certain standards, and we write up recommendations on a regular basis. Now, when we got candidate status, we had 33 recommendations. I don't expect to have that many this time, but I wouldn't be surprised to have, maybe a dozen, certainly between 10 and 20. I wouldn't be surprised at all. And we would have to be, we would be written up, and as long as they're not IERs, we probably will get a recommendation from the evaluation team and the team member for us to be accredited, and then we'll be accredited. But we would have to come into compliance with these IERs that are, these standards that are not IERs within 2 years. We would have 2 years to do that. I don't know if I can find real quickly one that is, here, let's see. Here's one that I want to show you. that I think we're aware of. This is in Section 9, which has to do with faculty. And you can see there's an IAR there, one full-time contracted academically and spiritually qualified faculty member. We have that in our different programs. You have to have one in each program, at least. But look at 9.3. We have at least 25% of the courses in each major at the undergraduate level taught by somebody having a faculty, taught by faculty having a terminal degree. Now, we have some of this, but we probably will get a recommendation for this. We're working towards this. We're moving that direction. We are going to be relatively close, but we may not have 25% of the major the courses in our majors taught by somebody with a terminal degree from an accredited college. And if we don't, we'll get a recommendation, and we kind of expect that. But we are working towards it, and we can show that we are, and I believe we'll be fine. Now, again, this is the TRACS manual. Now let's go over to the other document that I really want you to concentrate on, and that is this demonstrating compliance and evaluating criteria. Let's go down to the faith statement that I showed you earlier. And here's the faith statement. Here's the same material at the beginning. Here's the exact same standard from before. Here's the second standard from before. But here, look what they do. They give you evaluating criteria. The commission will utilize the following evaluating criteria, which will determine institutional compliance. So what's the evaluating criteria? Here's the evaluating criteria. That the faith statement is consistent with evangelical Protestant theology and with the faith statement of TRACS. They're going to if I was over this area, I would have to use that as a criteria. That's what the team will do. It accurately defines the theological distinctives of the institution. It's reflected in the institution's key publication, including the website. It's regularly reviewed and approved by the institution's board and outlined in the assessment plan. Now, it also gives you documentation. And by the way, we're fine on all that. I just have to write in my narrative how we are in compliance with all of that. Then, what documentation do I look for? Here's what I look for. I look for a policy or procedural document containing the institution's commitment to notify TRACS if the faith statement is altered substantially. And so I would have to find some sort of a policy or procedure document to show that we do that. Now, this is an area that we're wondering about. We're going to be looking for to make sure we have that. If we don't have it, we're going to make sure that is in our document by the time the team gets here. Copies of institutional publications that have the faith statement. So we could say it's in the catalog, it's in our board manual, it's on our website, etc. Board meeting minutes indicating that the faith statement is reviewed and approved according to the institution's assessment plan. And documents indicating the faith statement is understood and respected by the institution board, faculty, administration, faculty, staff, and students. For example, the board signs a statement every year. The administration signs a statement when they sign their contract, as well as the faculty and the staff. And then we have the students look over the faith statement, and we have documentation showing that. So these are the documentation that I would have to have. And it also gives me the TRACS faith statement to help me show that. So when you look for your standard, and if I go down and find I'm going to find that 25%. Here's the one that says 25%. The evaluating criteria. Now this is talking about all of these standards. That the faculty is 9.1, 9.7. Here's the criteria, and with all of these things, faculties earn at least have a master's degree with at least 18 hours in their field and so forth. And it shows the different things we need to have in the documentation. Also, transcripts, contracts, staff evaluation, and different things. Um, we would, oh wait, that of course that's still an explanation in documentation. The ISL, called the instruct, we have a list of every faculty member with all their criteria all their credentials. Um, the faculty handbook. There's just a lot of things that you can have for documentation. So again, this document is probably the document you want to go ahead and go to it first, because it has all the standards in it, but it really gives you a big help because it tells you how to evaluate and how to look. The final thing that I want to mention to you, go back to the home page and we go under the instructions, is that you can review the track standards in the manual. You can review the evaluating criteria and typical documentation in the demonstrating compliance manual we just looked at. Then set up a time to talk to me. And once you look through those, you don't have to go through them extensively, but once you look through those, set up a time to talk to me, and I will go through you standard by standard. Then we'll talk about going back into maybe using the last self-study to help write some things, even looking at the exhibits in the last self-study. Then you'll be able to start writing your narratives and collecting your documentation. And so these are the basic steps that you'll follow. But hopefully what I've given you right now will be a quick overview of what you'll need to do. All right, God bless you, and I hope that you'll be able to get started on this right away.